Hello and welcome to my small little library. Today's video is gonna be my wrap-up of December, and I will have to keep all of the books relatively short simply because I've read 20 books in December, and yeah, this video is going to take forever if I talk too much. So I'm gonna try and do the reviews a little bit more precise. And yeah, I had a really great reading month in December. I read all of my books on my TBR except for 2, which I just really wasn't in the mood for, but I read all 9 others, plus a lot of other books. And yeah, let's get started. The first book that I've read in December was Die Stadt der träumenden Bücher, or The City of Dreaming Books, I think it's the called, by Walter Mörs, and he's a German author, and this is the first book in a series, though they don't, you don't have to start with the first one, they aren't like consecutive books, but they are kind of connected. So yeah, this got 5 stars. It was a reread for me because I wanted to read the second one, and even though they aren't that connected, I wanted to get into the world again before. This is one of my favorite books by the author, and yeah, it's just a really fun fantasy book. The main character is pretty much a lizard, and all of the lizards are poetically inclined, so they write a lot and stuff, and he goes on this search for an author whose manuscript his teacher gave him when he died. And yeah, he wants to find out who that author is, and it gets him into a lot of trouble. And yeah, it's just a really fantastic book. If you haven't read any of the Monium books, for example, the 13.5 Lives of Captain Bluebeard also plays in the world, but they aren't directly connected to these ones, but they do play in the same world. Yeah, you definitely have to pick up something from him. These are really classic fantasy, and they're a lot of fun. The next book I've read was The Drowned Woods by Emily Lloyd Jones. This one got 4 stars from me, which I was really nicely surprised. This pretty much plays in an alternate version of Wales, and it's like a medieval fantasy. It's more medieval-ish, and there's magic, and our main character can pretty much use water or anything. Yeah, pretty much anything water, and do stuff with it, because she's a water user. And there are also like people who have stone as an affinity, and stuff like that, you know? Magic is always kind of like connected to an element, and then you have power over that element. And the king pretty much seeks them all and kills them all because he doesn't want them running around, pretty much. And so yeah, our main character was in the fangs of the king, if you want to tell it like that. Or the prince, I think he's a prince, not a king. But yeah, she had to kill in his name, but she didn't know it, and as soon as she found out, she pretty much ran away. And at the beginning of the book, the spy master of the prince seeks her out, and he wants to strike a deal to bring the prince down. And from there on, it's pretty much a heist to destroy the magic that protects the kingdom and the palace where the prince is. And so they seek out to do that, and yeah, obviously a lot goes wrong, and it's an adventure, but yeah, it was a really fun read. I really enjoyed the characters. Everybody of the group, it's like a really ragtag team of different people, and it was a lot of fun to read. So yeah. Then the next book I've read, I'm gonna put the cover here, but I've listened to The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. I gave it 3 stars. To be honest, I think I'm just not the age anymore for books like that, but it is a really nice tale. I for one only ever watched the movies, which I liked. I mean, I think a lot of kids like those movies. But yeah, it's a fairy tale. I don't think it's anything special in all honesty, but yeah, I don't think I have a lot to say for The Wizard of Oz. Then I've read my first Conan book, which is just titled Conan, and this is a collection of Conan stories, mostly from the author himself. Other than that, also from like different authors who finished the manuscripts the author had left after he died, because he died really, really young, sadly. And yeah, it's Robert E. Howard who wrote the Conan novels, and yeah, it's Conan. I gave it 4 stars. He's not the smartest barbarian out there, and he has a lot of muscle friends, and he really likes pretty women, and that's all he does. He plunders, he kills, he gets the women, and he lets the women go again, because he's pretty convinced that his lifestyle isn't for the women. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to read. To be honest, I think like adventure novels where it's just like brute force and it isn't like a mystery or anything like that, but it's more like, oh, that is my enemy and I will kill him. I think that's just a really fun action novel, you know, so I really enjoyed that. I also, but that review will come in the next month, but I also read the second Conan collection I own, and I loved that one just as much, and so yeah, I will definitely read more of Conan. Then I listened to another audiobook, which I don't own as a physical book. That is The Early Stories of Philip K. Dick, which is like a short story collection of Philip K. Dick's works, and I gave it 3 stars. The beginning stories were all really different and really interesting sci-fi stories, and then the second half felt like the same story told over and over again in a slightly different setting, which was really disappointing for me personally, because the first ones were just really different, and then you actually had only like war stories one after another in the second half. And in all honesty, I don't enjoy war stories that much, even though they were sci-fi war stories, but in the end they were all so samey that I didn't really enjoy them at all, because I felt like I've listened to the same thing again and again and again for hours, because it isn't a short audiobook, like it was quite long, I think. I really like Philip K. Dick, but that one was just like hit and miss, which happens in short story collections, you can't like all of them. But yeah, so 3 stars because the later ones did bring it down a lot. The first ones I was really elated about because they were really funny, really brutal, and all really, really interesting. Then I finally finished up the Percy Jackson series, the first one. I've read Percy Jackson and The Last Olympian. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoy these books. I can't say much about the story, but it's pretty much the end war and they try to save Olympus. And yeah, I really enjoy these. They don't get 5 stars from me because I really don't enjoy the whole Annabeth, Percy, and oh, what's her name? And Rachel. I really don't enjoy that the drama that comes with those 3, and yeah, I think if you're maybe a teenager you wouldn't mind, but for me it isn't that, and so I always have to deduct a star. But other than that, these are really, really great Greek myth tellings, pretty much. What's up? What's los, mein Süßer? Then I did a reread of the first Harry Potter novel. For me, this is still 5 stars. I really enjoyed it as a teenager. I still really enjoy the novel. I think I don't have to tell you what it's about, right? Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone by J.K. Rowling. I enjoy it still. Every now and then I do a reread of these because they were my childhood and they really kindled my love for reading. And so yeah, I really do enjoy them. And the next one is again a 3-star read, which is Through the Woods. That is a horror graphic novel. Sorry, had to make space for the dog. Through the Woods, which is a horror graphic novel. I really, really like the art style in here. Yeah, it's a really, really pretty art style, but the stories, I I don't know if it's a me problem, but I really didn't understand a lot of the stories. For me, some of them were just... but they didn't really try to even like give hints. They were just... there's supposed to be a story, but I didn't see it, and the other ones were okay. So yeah, it was kind of a disappointment because I had this one on my TBR for a long time, and I finally bought it last month, and yeah, I didn't enjoy it as much as I hoped to. I just think that also graphic novels just aren't my preferred way to read something. They always tend to get around 3 stars, with some really, really small, like the Sandman graphic novels, which I really, really loved and have given 5 stars. But other than that, I do enjoy the art, but I find that a lot of the stories are kind of lacking, you know. But yeah, I will try them every now and again, just because I'm interested in seeing whether I find something new that I do like. Then the next book I've read was the Kaju Preservation Society by John Scarsey. This one I enjoyed quite a lot. I gave it 4 stars. The author did describe it quite well, because he said he wanted to write a book like a pop song, because, I don't know, every one of us has a lot of fun with pop songs. Like, you can dance to it, you will sing it, it sticks in your head for a little bit, and then you get on to the next one, and yeah, it entertains you. And this book was exactly that for me. You have the Kaju Preservation Society, and our main character loses his job and then reconnects with an old mate from university, and he gives him a job at the Kaju Preservation Society. And so they go to this parallel world where there are Kajus living there, which are kind of like Godzilla, like this really massive mountain-like beings, and they have to be preserved because they tend to... they have problems, you know, just like our animals, and obviously they are bad guys who want to get them to Earth because they have nuclear reactors in them that give them energy, and so the bad guys want to harvest that energy, and the Preservation Society has to try to stop them. And yeah, it was a really, really fun book. I would definitely read more of this author. I hadn't heard of him before, but he has written quite a lot of other books, so I do have to pick something other up from him. But yeah, really, really fun. Then I listened for the first time to Casino Royale by Ian Fleming. I do enjoy the James Bond movies quite a bit. Now that I found out that James Bond isn't quite who he is supposed to be in the movies, in the books, it's a little bit maddening, to be honest. James Bond in the books is really just not that good of an agent. And in Casino Royale, pretty much the first half of the book is just gambling, and the second half is James Bond getting tortured. Yeah, in all honesty, I gave it 3 stars because it was still somewhat entertaining, but if you love the James Bond of the movies, you probably wouldn't like the books, because he really isn't a good agent. And I've read reviews of the other books because I, yeah, wanted to decide if I will continue reading those or if I won't. And the people said that it just gets worse. And so yeah, I've decided to not continue reading the James Bond novels. I will rather watch the films. Yeah, James Bond really isn't that good of an agent, and that was kind of depressing, to be honest, because I like his character that much. But yeah, you can't have everything, right? So, the next one which I have finally read, this is The Way of Kings, Part 1. I absolutely loved this book, 5 stars. Kaladin is just a gem. I love him so much, and I'm really, really looking forward to reading the second half of the book, because this is just the first half of the book. But yeah, you have pretty much 3 different parallel moving stories. One where you have Kaladin, who is a slave for most part of this book, and then you have Shallan, who tries to save her family, and for that she tries to steal the fabricator of the king's sister, but she has a lot more interest in studying with her, but she has to also save her family. And then you have Dalina and his 2 sons, who are like a High Lord, and they are with the army on the plateau, fighting it against the bad guys, where also Kaladin is, but he is a slave, so in a different army from a different High Lord. And yeah, Dalina is really struggling with war, and because it's going on for 7 years, and yeah, just the whole world is really, really interesting. I can't really describe it at all completely because it's such a vast world with so many concepts that it's really hard to describe. But yeah, there are shard blades and shard armor. You make people kind of superhuman. They give them a lot of strength, and they can jump way higher, and they are way fitter and stuff. And so it's also always a competition to own these because there's a finite amount. And yeah, Dalina, for example, has one of those. And yeah, it was a really, really fun read. I'm really looking forward to reading part 2 this month, so you can look forward to the review of that one in next week's wrap-up. Next month wrap-up. Then I listened to another audiobook, put the cover here, A Very Short History of Life on Earth by Henry G. That was a really, really fun listen to. It is exactly what it says, so I gave it 4 stars. It is a very short history of how life happened and how life evolved. And yeah, I like to listen to those non-fiction books every now and then. I really liked Sapiens, for example. And this one is like a more laid-back... yeah, it's for novices, you know? If you don't have the most scientific understanding of how life came to be, this is a really, really nice book to listen to. I would say do it. I think that listening to it in audio, listen to the audiobook was a really great idea, because you could just like listen to it, like if you would put on a documentary on TV and then do household chores, like I kind of treated it like that, and so yeah, I really enjoyed the listening. Then we have another Philip K. Dick book I read, which is A Maze of Death. I gave it 4 stars. There's a lot of death in here and there isn't a maze. Which I'm grappling with the name, you know. I hate it when you say A Maze of Death and there isn't a maze in here. But yeah, you have 14 people who get sent to a planet to pretty much prepared for colonization. All of those people have like kind of really different interesting problems, like drug problems or a doctor being hypochondriac and stuff. And yeah, once they're all on the planet, people start dying. And yeah, it starts getting into like a really thriller-like thing, and it's a really interesting story. The ending was perfect. I really loved the ending. The religion in the book is really, really interesting. Dick really imagined up like a whole religion where gods are actually physical beings or planets you can actually write to and they will answer you and stuff. It's really, really interesting. Yeah, I really like Philip K. Dick for his sci-fi, and that one was another good one of his. Next up is another fantasy, which is The Whispering Dark, a really, really pretty book. I gave it 3 stars. I have my problems with this book. What I like is the main character is deaf, as well as the author as well. And so it makes for a little bit of a different thing, because oftentimes you can't hear people really clearly. She has cochlear implants, but if you thought a little bit about it, if you have too many sounds and voices at once, even the implants won't help you because it's just too much sound. So she has problems whenever there are too many people or too many stuff around her. So yeah, because she doesn't know what she wants to do and her parents kind of think like she's a really breakable thing, she pretty much puts an application into this program that searches the best university for you and puts you in that university. And she gets put in the university for pretty much special people who train their people to wander between parallel worlds. And so yeah, she is supposed to learn that. Obviously there's a lot more to it, but the thing is, she only ever goes to a parallel world twice in the book, once in her training and then once at a different time, but it really doesn't matter. And also, all of her professors didn't read the email that she's deaf, and so they treat her like every other student. And instead of correcting them, she just is like, no, I don't want to embarrass them, so I'm gonna suffer for it. Which really annoyed me, because is that realistic? I for one have also quite a bit health problems, not like being deaf, but I made my boss, for example, I told him, sometimes I just can't go into work because I can't leave my house because of my stomach issues. You have to tell people that, and I mean, even I did that, and I hate confronting people, so yeah, I was really mad at her. Yeah, and I think the book had a lot more potential than what it used, and so it's just fine. I enjoyed it fine enough, but I wouldn't read it again. I will probably forget about it, and so yeah, it's not one of those books that stays with you, sadly. Then the next fantasy also was sadly only 3 stars. This is Season of Fears, the second part of, I don't know if they have like a season name, but Middle Game is the first one, Season of Fears is the second one. And I was really disappointed in this book, even though I gave it 3 stars, because I do enjoy Seanan McGuire's writing style. But in the first book you have Roger and Dodger, who are really charismatic main characters. I really loved them. They had a lot of chemistry between them. And then you have our main characters here, which are called... I already forget. Harry and Melanie. And they don't have any chemistry at all. But they are a couple, which kind of makes it hard. So yeah, the whole time reading through this, both stories are pretty much connected to alchemy, and you also get to meet the characters from the first book in the second book, and this one kind of it makes the alchemic world a little bit wider and adds some seasonal elements into it, and our main characters are supposed to get the crown to be Winter Queen and Summer King, to reign as the seasons, pretty much as the human anthropomorphized seasons, pretty much, and they have to fight to get there. And yeah, I really didn't have any chemistry from them at all. I didn't like them. It was really hard to root for characters you don't care for in like a death battle. And then you also have Malhaz's sister, who was supposed to be the summer to her, but she didn't know her sister survived birth, and her father kept her in the basement. Really weird thing. And she's supposed to be like this really bad nemesis who's trained to kill, and she fails epically, and it's really nothing. Yeah, it's a little bit dumb, to be honest. So yeah, I was really disappointed in this. So I gave it 3 stars. Yeah, what can you do, right? Sometimes that happens. I wish I hadn't read it, because it kind of makes me mad for the first book, because I loved the first one so much, but you can't have it all, right? Then I did need a palate cleanser after that, so I read Journey into Darkness by John Douglas and Mark Olshecker. And this is a true crime book. I gave it 5 stars. If you've read Mindhunter or watched the series, that is the first one, and this is the second one. You don't have to read them like in series format, you can pick them up whenever you want, but this one primarily is about young women and children and what happens to them, but it really focuses on the victims instead of on the perpetrators, which was really interesting. And this did make me cry, because there's a really sad case in here, and you get to read about her whole life and then about her really unnecessary death, and it's really sad. But yeah, there are also a lot of tips in here how you can help make your life safer, even though if something happens it isn't your fault, you know, but you can try to make yourself as safe as possible, and that was really great. I for one really like these books and will pick up more of them, because I think he has written more. I just think he had a really nice, interesting narrative style. I don't know if the detective John Douglas, because he really did work as a detective, or Mark Olshecker, I think, is the author which he collaborated to do the book. I don't know who has the narrative voice, but I really enjoy it, and I think it's a really interesting true crime book. Then I listened to The Two Towers. I couldn't get a hold of the first audiobook, so I listened to the second one, but because I read all of the Lord of the Rings books and I really know them and the movies and the books by heart, didn't matter. For me, these are always like a comfort read, and so I did my first listening to them with the actor as Gollum as the voice actor for the audiobooks, and it was just divine. It was so good. Really would recommend. Yeah, 5 stars. I mean, what else is there to say about The Lord of the Rings? I personally really love Tolkien's writing style. I'm a big fan, you know. Then, to have the next palette cleanser, I then read Night Shift around Christmas. Yeah, that is a short story collection of horror stories by Stephen King. I really enjoyed them. I gave it 4 stars. My favorite ones were the ones connected to Salem's Lot, because I didn't know that there were short stories connected to that that were in here, and I now know finally about the Children of the Corn story, because I hate horror movies. I will never watch the movie, but now at least I know the story, you know. But yeah, would definitely recommend. I think it's one of the stronger short story collections of Stephen King, and it's also his first one, so I think that is really great. Yeah. Then I listened to another audiobook, which is How to Absurd Scientific Advice for Common Real World Problems by Randall Munro. I gave it 3 stars. It's really a book where like there's a question, how do you dig a hole? And then he explains, way too complicated, how you can dig a hole. But I think it was kind of interesting, and it was one of those, I have no idea what I want to read, and I could get that, so I listened to it. Now, the last book of December was then Poster Girl, which I gave 4 stars. I think this is a really interesting book. Our main character was the poster girl for like a really bad regime who put lenses into everyone's eyes, and they pretty much looked at everything you did, and you got points for doing good things, and points went away if you did bad things. And the regime got toppled, and the poster girl, as with a lot of other people together, got thrown into this prison, which is pretty much a little city inside the big city as a prison. And she is there, and she got thrown in there when she was 17, and it's now 10 years later. And they started to release all of the children who got thrown into the prison when they were 16 or under. So she's directly above that. And so one day they come to her with a deal. She's supposed to find a missing girl in exchange for her freedom. And she accepts the deal, and then pretty much her whole world topples a little bit, because she finds things out about her family, who were really high in the regime, and also about how the world is now out there, because she doesn't have any idea about the world out there because she was incarcerated for 10 years. And yeah, she really struggles with accepting how the world is now, because she grew up in the regime. But yeah, I really like the main character. The voice is really young. Even though she's an adult, she really reads like a teenager, like late teens. But I think it's quite fitting, because she really was stuck for 10 years in the prison because there wasn't anything to do. They got things thrown into there, but they didn't really have jobs or anything to do, and so she tried to learn stuff, but she still feels really young, and she hasn't really made any other experiences in the prison other than just that she has to take care of herself. So yeah, I found it to be a really interesting dystopian book. Also, it's by Veronica Roth. I totally forgot to tell you that. Which she's the author of the Divergent series, which I have never read. I watched the first movie, hated when somebody spoiled me the ending, and so I never got back to it. But yeah, this one I was really impressed with, and I, for one, really enjoyed it. So yeah, hopefully, sorry for going really quick, but I had 20 books to get through, and my battery is flashing at me the whole time. So yeah, that were all the books I've read in December. My best reading month so far, but only because I didn't have to work for the month. Yeah, now I'm back to work, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I had a good reading month. How was your reading month? What did you read in December? Have you read any of the books I've read? How did you like them? Leave me comments down below, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe leave a like, subscribe if you want to, or recommend myself to recommend my videos to some friends if you'd like. And I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!